Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me tonight, as always, is Luca. Luca, 4 games in, 4 wins. How you feeling about these Buffalo Bills?
That little thing right there is the most important number in all of this. And I'm just going to start there because obviously this conversation could go a multitude of ways as we record this, but I'm feeling fine
Yeah.
because it feels like, what was it? Yeah, it was last week with the Thursday night game. Felt like my message almost has to carry over into this one where, look, was it as pretty as it needed to be? Absolutely not. Far from it. But are you going to be thinking about that week 4? And last week I said week 3 game against these opponents and being like, oh man, that play right there could then come back to bite us in the ass and stuff. No, you're going to, the win being in that win column is all that matters. Did we defeat the Saints? Yes. So on this Sunday night, as I'm watching Micah Parsons warm-up highlights for the Sunday night football game of the revenge game of the games, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling pretty dang good about where everything stands as a Bills fan.
31-19, the Bills defeated the New Orleans Saints today. And the Bills were a 15-point favorite. They did not cover the spread. They improved to 4-0. And Luca, I think we will talk about things that transpired in the game today for sure. But this to me feels much more like a big picture podcast. And that's where I want to start. We are 4 games in. I did put this question out on Twitter from our Twitter account. By the way, we hit 10,000 followers over the weekend. Thank you to all of you out there. For two guys that started this as a hobby couple of years back, it's like, hey, we just like talking ball. Let's just hit the record button, see if anybody likes to listen, to now having 10,000 followers on Twitter, growing our YouTube channel. It's exciting, and we're grateful for all of you. Um, are the vibes more positive or negative? And I realize that's a polarizing question to ask because it can lead to a lot of arguments, particularly on social media. Because if you are positive right now, which you are well within your right to be, it's like, hey, the Bills are 4-0 and they've won 4 games and they are 2-0 in the division and they have 3-0 in the conference and they took care of business today. And then if you really want to dig a little deeper, you could say, I saw a Chargers team lose to the Giants today, who were starting a rookie quarterback. I saw a Browns team beat the Packers last week. It's just about surviving and not tripping up in games that you should absolutely win. And you know what? You're absolutely right. It's all about surviving. And in most cases, I agree. You do not want to be playing your best football in September anyway. And the Bills, to my knowledge, did not suffer any major injuries today. At least not McDermott didn't say anything. We always find out more the next day. And that's a win because when you look around the league and Malik Neighbors got carded, and at one point, Aiden Hutchinson looked like he was really hurt. And I'm missing somebody else, a big one. Lamar, hamstring injury. So
Pretty
yeah, I mean, all that's positive. Okay, I've represented that side. The negative side. These aren't people that just live with the gray cloud over their heads that like to complain. We know those people exist in our society. Try to ignore them, but these are people that are Bills fans, like all of us, that have seen this team make it to the playoffs and not be able to stop the Chiefs with 13 seconds, or have no answers for a Chiefs offense last season where their offense was mostly stuck in the mud against anybody with a functional defensive line. And then 2 weeks in a row, we saw a left for dead Dolphins team go up and down the field, taking time off the clock, converting numerous third downs, and put a real scare into this Bills team. And then I would say, Luca, for 3 quarters of this game, we saw a Saints offense with Spencer Rattler, who's a gritty player. He has some mobility, but there's no special players on this Saints team. Alvin Kamara is past his prime. Chris Olave is a good but not great player, Chris Olave. But ultimately, this is not a team that in your building should be having the ease that the Saints had going up and down the field. So you can see both sides. The good news is you're 4-0. The bad news could be that you haven't seen anything from this defense yet through 4 games that tells you anything has changed. Luca, where do you stand?
So I will say, outside after the Miami game, I really was I'm not concerned about this. I mean, other than the Trey White, just loads of cushion and problems and things of that seem to absolutely continue through this game. And we will absolutely have a conversation about that at some point in time. This one did leave a little bit of more of of what the F is going on too many times. And that was happening because the defensive line just looked like they were lacking the understanding of what their job was on certain looks or plays. The one Spencer, I think it was a Spencer Rattler scramble. It was a run play that we saw Bosa, who still, played fine, but he decided to take the inside move, which just completely opened up the outside for whoever the runner was to freely take all the yardage possible. And that feels like one where he was even colliding with the individual next to him because that individual was taking that gap of space. And all of a sudden, again, maybe Bosa's assignment or job was to be on that outside because it didn't feel like any of that second level, being the linebackers, were in charge or responsible for that. No safety was really there immediately. Those are just those little nuances that it feels like are still not quite known and are lacking from the defensive side of the ball. That it is September. We're about to be in October by the next time the Bills are on the field. They should be able to work out, but that feels like now it's repeating itself enough that it's not concern. It's more just I'm questioning what the message is following these games now, because a pattern shouldn't really be there when you're looking at all of these things and seeing what's taking place. And I shouldn't be sitting there watching AJ Epinesa or Joey Bosa or anyone on the edge just completely avoiding or just ignoring their job of that edge contain for anything that is supposed to be traveling their way, if at all it comes. So I just, there is just a question mark as to what the message is, what the preparation and stuff like that. And preparation is another thing I come out of this game where I made a joke with you right before we hit record. It felt for the first time in a long time as a Bills fan and for this Bills team that they really went into this game without game planning for it. It felt like one where it's, we know it. We have the stock plays. We have the stock things we want to do. We should be able to just quite literally walk into this and take care of business. And the bottom line is this is the NFL and you're going to get everyone's best shot no matter what. You see some other people out there going, we just don't want to show everything. You see some of these ludicrous fans out there just, well, the Bills aren't actually trying 100% because they don't want to show everything. It's like, that's not how this works. You can't do that. You can be the best team in the league, like the Bills are sometimes considered, playing the worst team in the league, which feels like the Saints are pretty much that. And if you are not giving your full effort and you haven't planned for that game and gone in with the full understanding of expectation of what you need to do to get out of there with a win, you can run into some serious issues and it will go far less smooth than how you want it to be. And that's exactly what it felt like this entire time. Now, did I ever feel we were in threat of a loss? No, but it's one of those things where you need to have the ability to respect your opponent enough. You need to be capable of doing your job at its highest level if you expect to continue to dominate like we know this team can. And today the defense definitely had its questions and issues where I'm still left kind of wondering, as I said, to wrap up this point, I said earlier, it just felt like I'm not sure what that message is there. I'm not sure what the coaching is telling them. I will say I'm not hating on Bobby Babich, but I also just wonder if from a defensive coordinator standpoint, that message or whatever's being done week in, week out isn't quite getting it through clear enough to these guys. And that's why we're seeing performances like we have recently with the Dolphins and now the Saints game. But then at the same time, we're in September. And you always got to remember yourself, as you even pointed out, injuries have not seemed to, knock on wood, come yet, at least major ones. We do have Ed Oliver, Matt Milano out, and those things will be a boost. Max Harrison, depending on how that progresses, will be coming back. But the most important individual, Josh Allen, is still there, luckily. And what I think we also saw take place today was a friend even made the comment. It was like mid third quarter as the Saints were driving. It did feel like there was an attitude shift from the players on the field, both defensively and offensively, where it's like, okay, this is getting a little ridiculous. This is getting out of hand. We need to figure this the F out. And then you even saw that in Josh Allen's play. I felt like in the second half, especially, where it was, we need to put this one away. We need to just do what we do best, and we'll take this one home. And they did exactly that. So it's not concern. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm worried or any of those kinds of words with a serious negative connotation. I just have I just have some more questions that are continuing to be there, that it would be really nice by the bye week, Josh, if we could get some of those answered and figured out, because that's when now the football games start to get a little bit more real and you're starting to get serious when it comes to trying to create that separation we would all love to see in the standings, and then hopefully get to the end point that we want it to be come playoff time and sit where we want to sit.
I think I'm a little worried. I understand that there's a group of people, and you mentioned some of the names that are going to be coming back. Michael Hoyt, I think, is probably the biggest name that we haven't seen so far. Larry Ogunjobi, depending on what you think of him, but he's another defensive lineman, and you could definitely say the Bills aren't getting enough out of their defensive lineman right now. They will get back Matt Milano, and Ed Oliver was somebody that played week 1 and then has been gone since. And once he gets right, that'll be the big boost. He's probably their best defensive lineman, him or Joey Bosa at this point in time. And then, with the situation with Max Harrison, which kind of got thrown for a loop this week when McDermott said that it's not if, but when he comes back. So that definitely sent some scare up there. And you saw today, even the Bills rotating in Dorian Strong for Trey White, which I thought was a good move. I applaud them for that. But I guess where I'm ultimately worried is none of those names I mentioned, besides Ed Oliver, real, and I guess Matt Milano, are like defense changing names. Now what's the best case scenario? Okay, the best case scenario is Ed Oliver comes back and he looks as unblockable as he did week 1, and he plays at a Pro Bowl / All Pro level. I think that's realistic. I think that's within his range of outcomes. I really do. Michael Hoyt comes in and instantly upgrades the Bills' third pass rusher. And at this point, quite honestly, with the way Greg Rousseau looks, maybe he upgrades their second best pass rusher on the edge. It gives them some juice there. No pun intended. Larry Ogunjobi comes in and stabilizes the center of the defense, because holy cow, Luka, we know there were gonna be some growing pains when you're playing rookies so much, but some of these defensive linemen out there on the interior act like they have never seen a run fit before in their life, and it is maddening to watch. Matt Milano comes back and stabilizes the second level. Dorian Williams, I appreciate how you filled in last year, but holy cow, buddy, go take a timeout, take a deep breath. You are not playing well this year. In fact, what's the guy, the old guy that came in
Shaq
from
Thompson.
Shaq Thompson? He replaced Dorian Williams this game, even though Dorian Williams is considered more of like the true backup to Milano. It's like McDermott got tired of seeing Dorian Williams overrun his gaps and just miss tackles. And Shaq Thompson, every time he plays, he pops. So there are paths here. And then I guess Max Harrison, I'm starting to become less optimistic there, hits the ground running and is an immediate upgrade over Trey White. There are paths. It's all there. It's realistic. But ultimately, I do think that for the most part, these are who the Bills have. They have a limited cap space. I do think they could make a trade for a player if they wanted to go after, say, a Reek Woolen, or if they wanted to go out and sign a CJ Gardner Johnson to upgrade their safety position. There's moves they could make, I suppose. I want to hit on one point that you said before I maybe get back to the defensive line, because you said this was as unprepared as the Bills had looked, and even joked that they didn't game plan. The Saints, for as bad as they've been, they have a Kellen Moore offense, which we all know has a reputation of being one of the fastest paced offenses in the league. That's one reason why fantasy players love the Saints. They love everything about them because their pace of play is so fast, they're going to run some plays. And it seemed like everybody in the world, if I know that, and Luka knows that, why did it catch the Bills off guard so often? Luka, we had multiple instances today where Sean McDermott had to burn a pre-snap timeout because the Bills were not ready for the snap. We had an instance where the Bills got called for 12 men on the field because they were not ready for the substitution and then the quick snap. They had to burn a timeout on a 2-point conversion because they only had 10 players on the field because the Saints were ready to go and line up. And it just drove me nuts that the one compliment you can give this Saints team, I mean, they're young, they're undermanned, they are not a good team, but they play fast. The Bills were not ready for. This wasn't an expansive scouting notebook like when you play the Ravens. There wasn't a whole lot you really had to worry about, but the Saints playing fast shouldn't have caught anybody by surprise, and it looked like the Bills had no idea that they were supposed to be expecting
it. The point, or kind of the direction you went with that, I do love, because there was a moment within all of that when it comes to McDermott's timeout calling and things of that nature, and the 12 on the field and then 10 on, before the timeout, the 10 on the field for the 2-point try. What I found fascinating, or what I even said to myself at one point, or is even recognized during the broadcast, is McDermott, for the first time, it felt like in a very, very, I have never seen McDermott that animated with sideline officials and referees. And I don't think it was ever truly explained what's going on. I don't know if McDermott addressed it after the game. If anyone asked him, I would have loved if someone did ask him why he was so animated and frustrated with the officials. I'm not an all 22 person. I'm not going to sit there and watch all 22 and the replay and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I think about it. This is one of the ones I would think about it, only for the fact of what I believe is potentially there. And I'd be very curious to know if it's just McDermott seeing things and being ill prepared, or if it truly was what it was. And the Saints might have been even sneaking substitutions without the refs even recognizing it because of their fast play, and therefore not giving the allotted time that they're supposed to for defense to substitute. And that's why then they were getting caught a lot. Who knows what the reasoning is? The bottom line, though, is exactly how you put it. It felt, and it just felt like you would like McDermott to have had this team, or McDermott, Babich, the defensive coaching staff, just the staff in general, have this team ready and understanding that the one thing, the staple of a Kellen Moore offense, is that quicker pace, that just simplifying things, but trying to execute them at a fast, high volume level. And it really felt as if they were not ready for that. And then on top of it all, it felt like the Bills were wanting and desiring to do more substitutions and really rotate through people. And it's like, if the offense is opposed to you, is trying to run at a high pace and fast pace, you can't do that. You have to accept that you're not going to have that ability, and you should understand that. And it felt as if for a stretch there that McDermott and the staff just refused to believe that as real. They didn't want that reality to exist. And he was even willing to burn timeouts over this frustration. And that's just, I'm not faulting McDermott and calling him an idiot when it comes to clock management, because I think we've gotten beyond that. But it did feel like, an old, like he let the emotions of clock management and game management get back to him and get at him and just frustratingly call those timeouts. And it had that little bit of stuff creaking through and just kind of getting back at him. And it ill prepared is just the thing that keeps going on my mind. And it's from top to bottom. It's not just the players. It's not just the coaches. It feels like from a whole team perspective, the preparedness just didn't feel right. It didn't feel there. It truly felt stock. And I say stock just to kind of, it's not like I'm pissed off about it. It just really felt like a go through the motions. We have playbooks that we like and plays that we like, and it's all stock. It's grab it off the shelf and use it when you need it. It's stock. It's inventory. You just let it go, and it'll get you by through the week. It'll make your Tuesday night dinner and get you to Wednesday, no problem, because it's just stocked on the shelves. Like, you can't do that. You have to at least have some sort of game plan and understanding week in, week out. That's how it feels like most of the time that's not the case. I mean, we hear them preach all the time, 1-0. It's this week's about getting 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. So either they game plan like absolute dog shit, or they just failed to recognize the little things you need to play the Saints. I mean, there is that other thing in this where you have to respect the Saints coming off of a game of which they did in Seattle last week, that, they're for betting trend purposes, Josh. I believe it's when you get blown out by over 28 points the following week and you're a dog by more than whatever points. I can't remember the metric, but by that point, it's like a cover the spread by like almost 70%. And I believe that stat to be a better one. Some of those ones are really quirky and weird, but I think the message of that stat is pretty clear and concise. Teams that get blown out the week before have a lot to prove to themselves inside the locker room, but then also to teams everywhere else, that they're not just some team you can walk over week in, week out. They have pride. They care. The Saints are not going to be winning a lot of football games, but they don't want to be losing a lot of football games by 30 plus points. And they want you to show that they belong in this league. They belong. They can play with you and they can stay with you. And that's exactly what they did today. And I do think that there's twofold in that. I think the Saints had a little bit of, frustrations from last week bleed over into this week and wanted to prove to everyone, including themselves, that they are still an NFL team and capable of doing things. But then on top of it, it just feels like the Bills had not even their B game, just C game, and just were trying to go through it and get through it so that they could get to next week with the Patriots coming here on Sunday night. And they didn't feel as if potentially they had the need to really give it their all and do what it is. I don't reflect in that with the injury stuff though, like Spencer Brown not playing because you're probably being more cautious with that. I'm fine with, you should be able to get by the Saints with Vandemark at tackle. Like that, you've mentioned it, and I will say it, like the Saints aren't world beaters. They don't have players over there that you should be overly concerned about. Ryan Vandemark should be able to hold his own. And for the most part, he did average, and that's all you need out of a backup tackle or backup lineman. It's fine. Get through the damn game. I'm okay with being conservative on injuries for a game like this, because if you're the Bills and you have the expectations in the team that you believe it to do what you want it to do, you should be getting through the Saints no problem, as long as you still respect the opponent and have a game plan forward. And I'm not saying they didn't respect the Saints, but at the same time, it felt like maybe they were thinking or going into this game just with a lack of truly understanding what was necessary to control it to the level that they probably should have.
Yeah, and this game sure started off beautiful. I mean, look, there's a lot of positives about the Bills right now. We are holding them to a different standard. We are holding them to a championship standard. I still believe the Bills are going to be the 1 seed in the AFC, which is something they have not accomplished since the Jim Kelly days. I still believe that the Bills are going to have to lose at home in the playoffs to not make it to the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of good things to say. 4 games in a row, they have scored a touchdown on their first drive of the game. That is fantastic. That is exactly what you want to see, exactly how you draw it up. But I will say, I think, by the way, we'll talk about him later, but there's a player on the Saints defense who absolutely popped today in the secondary, and his interception he made. Whoo! The Bills got some flack on Twitter. People were being like, "That's why the Bills don't throw deep." It's like, no, no, no. That is one of the best plays by a safety you'll ever see.
It's the
He made Josh
2021.
Allen.
It was the 2021 Micah Hyde interception. It's
He
the
made
same
Josh
play.
Allen bite the cheese. Because Keon Coleman looks wide open until he's not, and it's like, whoa, that was incredible. I mean, but I want to make a point on the defense, because I think there's another point to be made. Okay, so Luka, nobody fears this Bills defense right now. And that can be for a multitude of reasons. It could be because they don't have a lot of their guys, Oliver, Milano, Michael Hoyt, their first round pick, Harrison. We know the names. But whatever the case, nobody fears this team. At home in Buffalo, where they have a loud crowd to their advantage, this team plays their best ball at home. They're giving up 186 rushing yards per game. 186 rushing yards per game. This Bills team right now, with all the resources they've invested in the defensive line, they are 4-0, and they have had nothing but positive game scripts except for week 1. I just had it up. They have 2 guys on the entire roster that have more than 1 sack. Joey Bosa and Daquan Jones. Sacks are not the ultimate end all be all stat, but at some point it's as simple as great that you get pressure, but it's time for you to get the quarterback down to the ground. Sacks in drives. Pressure without sacks just are cool box score or cool graphs that will get somebody really paid in March, and you'll wonder why that 6 sack guy got paid. I'm a big pressure guy, but at some point you got to get him to the ground. There's a lot of things we can talk about. We can talk about Hoyt. We can talk about Ed Oliver. We can talk about, all the different things the Bills can do up front. Ogunjobi. There is one move the Bills can make, and it's very simple. And it's time for Landon Jackson to get a uniform. And I was not the biggest Landon Jackson fan in the draft. I was not like overly excited when they drafted Landon Jackson. But Luka, this is a guy that was a top 100 player taken in the draft. He was taken 72 overall by the Buffalo Bills. There were mock drafts out there that had him going in the first round. And this is a day where Javon Solomon got almost 20 snaps. AJ Epinesa, who did have a sack, but holy cow, has he been a ghost all season long. I know he's playing with a bit of a pectoral injury. He had a sack, but too many snaps right now are going to guys like either Solomon that has such a limited tool bag, or Epinesa who has stacked years in showing us who he is. And you have this door number 3 of the 72 overall pick in the draft that supposedly, I mean, we know he has length, we know he has ridiculous athleticism, he's got a toolbox for days, he's just raw. Time to get him a uniform. Let's see what he can do. Can you give him a role? Can you just teach him how to set the edge? I don't care. He needs to start getting some experience now. This is the easier part of the schedule. The Bills' next 3 games are against the Patriots, who I do not think will be an easy out, the Falcons, who I do not think will be an easy out, and the Panthers, who will probably be an easy out. Um, this is a great time to find out where he's at. What do you think right now? We know the special team dynamic, but at some point, Luka, pick 72 in the draft. You're getting nothing out of so many of your defensive linemen. It's time to see what you have in this kid.
It's a simple give me something different. What you're showing me isn't working. And it does feel like, as you're pointing it out perfectly, it's a defensive line focus. It feels, I brought up the thing where I'm concerned about the message, or I'm worried about what the message is on this, or what the coaching staff is doing week in, week out, that this defensive line just doesn't seem to then be capable of taking it and be improving. It'd be one thing if we saw what we did week 1, right? Week 2 feels like an anomaly. I mean, the Jets are the Jets. And then you have what you have with Miami. And then now it's like, if week 1 was what it was, but then that Miami game, you weren't getting ran on nearly as much. And then today, again, we didn't see Kendre Miller out there averaging almost 6 yards a carry on this defensive line. Then it'd be one thing. But if you're coming out there with the same guys and your biggest impact players are just not capable of doing the things you need them to do, and the only individual that seems to be standing out right now on the defensive line in the run game is Dayon Walker. Like, I want to see something else, that I'm with you. It's like guys like Javon Solomon and AJ Epinesa. And I think AJ Epinesa is more of the guy that it's like, is he really needed to be active on game days if this is what we get out of him? And it's like, do we have an alternative solution that could potentially provide us a little bit more security on that edge that we really need, it feels like? Then yes, like, I'm with you on that one. I think the only reason I don't put Javon Solomon in that is only because they utilize him on special teams a little bit more. But even today, Javon Solomon celebrating a tackle after a 10-yard return on a crap punt was certainly an interesting move. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, where it's like, nothing's going well for you and you're going to celebrate that one. Like, I mean, time and place, man, time and place. That not gonna. He made a play. He was excited about making a play. I get it. Time and place, dude. It's like a guy going hard celebrating a lockdown coverage play when you're down 30 points or whatever. It's like, yep, it was your defending there that's keeping your team in this as you're down 30 points. Like, there's just situations. Situations are situations in time and place. Regardless, I digress. I like this idea. I like this concept. I like the conversation being had, and I would love to see it entertained and potentially become reality, because you're gonna play for instance, the upcoming schedule you just brought up. The next 2 teams are a great highlight point to this. Those are 2 teams that are wanting to focus themselves from the backfield. They're absolutely going to want their backfield to control the game as best as possible, especially that Monday nighter in Atlanta. If there's one thing you need to highlight, and I hope to God they circle it with everything in their being, they go, hey, that number 7 guy, we need to not let him get past the line of scrimmage, because if we do, it's a problem. If you don't know who number 7 is on Atlanta, 1, I'm sorry you haven't been enjoying football enough, and 2, Bijan is an absolute freak. If you don't remember from draft prep, and when even Josh and I were entertaining how crazy awesome it would be to trade up into the top 10 to draft a Bijan for this offense, boy, he is something special. Anyways,
That wasn't our best take because James Cook was on the roster at that point, but he wasn't this James Cook.
He wasn't this James Cook yet. And even then, Josh, man, just Bijan. Anyways,
He's special.
He's unbelievable. But go even closer look, Patriots next week. I will be there. The one thing you will notice is, like, Travion Henderson, he's not even your main guy. You have Ramondre, who's still a thing there, and Antonio Gibson. I mean, for people that bet anytime touchdowns, you have 3 guys you have to focus on there. And that is exactly, there's a reason for it. The Patriots absolutely, under Vrabel, want the backfield to shine and let Drake May then be able to operate with a functional running back room complementing him. That is what they want and what they do. So you need to be able to lock that shit up so that they have to focus on letting Drake May try to pick you apart with, Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry and that kind of stuff. And if you can get it to that point in time, you should be okay. And then even fast forward with Atlanta, it's like, if you can just, I say lock up Bijan, you ain't locking up Bijan. If you can make him look somewhat human, and then Michael Penix has to dice you up with Kyle Pitts and Drake London and those kinds of individuals, you're going to leave yourself in a much better position than the alternative of letting them be able to run all over you and make it a very uncomfortable game, because those are 2 teams that absolutely will be able to control the game as long as they're able to do that in the ground game. So I love the idea and the thought of, hey, this is just not working on the defensive line. How can we get Landon Jackson dressed and going for this? Because it feels like he would be able to provide us something with a little bit more edge contain and run fit understanding and knowledge potentially. I mean, look, this is a conversation we're having. We're not inside maybe he just cannot grasp what even these other people can for now because he's that raw. But what we're getting out of AJ Epinesa and Javon Solomon being out there for significant snaps is just not good enough. And it might be time to just deal with the growing pains of athleticism. Something that a month ago, Bills fans were struggling with another defender in Cole Bishop. And look how that's paying off now. Like, you have to live through growing pains for players to understand their role and where they fit and how well it can go. And if they're athletic, it feels like that will come in time once they're comfortable. And Cole Bishop is another shining example of, like, you go with the athleticism, you trust that it's going to try to figure things out on the fly and get things going. And once it clicks and that switch flips, it's a beautiful, beautiful sight.
And that's why I'm okay with TJ Sanders playing so much as he did today, even though he's not effective right now. It's because at some point you hope the light comes on, and TJ Sanders, with the skill set he has that they saw worthy of trading up into the top half of the second round to get him, you would hope that he can offer them more than, say, a Larry Ogunjobi, but that is not the case at this point in time. Another young player that the Bills might be counting on more than we initially thought is Dorian Strong, Luka. There were multiple instances today where I was watching the game, I was tweeting from our account, and I was frustrated with Tre'Davious White. I know he ended up making what many will perceive as like a game-saving play, and he did. He made a great tackle. Was it Kamara or somebody? I think it might have been Kamara in the open field on 4th down to stop the game.
Yeah.
But look, Tre'Davious White, I hate coming on here every week and railing on Tre'Davious White. He's one of my favorite players ever on the Bills. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. The player he was, and like he was like the poster child for like the start of this culture change. He was McDermott's first draft pick before Bean was even here. And what a home run pick where, you know, he's the other guy in the trade away from Mahomes where you get Allen and Tre'Davious White, and you can live with it. You trade away from maybe the greatest quarterback ever, and you can live with it. But the Tre'Davious White we're getting right now is just not capable of playing defense the way you need to in today's NFL. He doesn't have the foot speed. He has to play off coverage. It limits what you can do, particularly in man coverage. And if we want to go around the league and you talk about teams that are in the Bills' way, I think there's a little bit of a book out on how to slow down the Ravens right now. It is play man coverage, delay blitz Lamar Jackson, force those receivers to beat man coverage. Well, guess what? If 30-year-old Tre'Davious White is one of your cornerbacks out there, guess what Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman are doing every single snap? And cover your ears, Bills fans, if you love Taron Johnson. They're doing the same thing to him.
Yeah.
So let's get some speed out there. It's why I got excited when I saw that Reek Woolen might be available for trade this morning. It's why I look at someone like a Jordan Hancock. I'm like, can we get him some snaps on the field? Let's see what he's got. But Luka, it was interesting to see multiple times today, early and late, that the Bills let Dorian Strong get a possession. I am absolutely in favor of that. Get his feet wet, get him experience. We know what we have in Tre'Davious White. We have to develop somebody. Ideally, it would be Max Harrison. That is not the world we're living in right now. Let's let's see what Dorian Strong has because we know he's an athletic upgrade over Tre'Davious White, if nothing else.
It's it's a great point to bring up. It is frustrating to constantly week in week out just sit here and just be wondering why the hell 27 is out there for meaningful snaps. But I love saying meaningful snaps because Dorian Strong, not only was he out there, Josh, it wasn't like he was out there for, snaps in between the 20s. And then all of a sudden we're putting Trey White out there when, we'll call it crucial snaps. Dorian Strong was being put out there, inside the red zone in and goal situations where plays tight. I mean, things move quick and he was trusted and relied on to be useful in those moments. And there's something to be said in that because just a week ago on Thursday Night Football, one of the biggest takeaways I had, and we had, and I'm sure a lot of people had, was that one red zone possession in and goal where Trey White is playing 4 yards off coverage of Jalen Waddle, 2 yards from the goal line. Like, you can't do that. Like, what are we doing? What are you trying to defend that's behind you, Trey? I don't. You're so worried about speed and recovery that you forget that in the place where that doesn't matter really, you're doing it. So that's just someone that's not confident, in my opinion. That's someone who's just understands also where they are at athletically and just needs to do what they can to get by. And at the same time, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone then why not Terrell Bernard is the leading tackler for the Bills after this game. It was Trey White, because I'm sure last week's game, those moments were on tape, and a guy like Kellen Moore was like, hey, Spencer, I'm going to simplify this for you. You look on the field and you see 27. The individual standing across from them most of the time is going to be your first read. That is how we're going to run this. And there was a long period of time in this game that's exactly what was taking place. So when you have something like that, if you are McDermott, if you're Babich, if you're this coaching staff, and you see something like that happening from as little of a level like the Saints, that should be a massive red flag to you. And it feels like something needs to change because of both what is to come and then also just what you currently sit at. I love that you keep bringing up Reek Woolen. I know he might not be the most popular name to a lot of other individuals, but he does provide you exactly what you're discussing here. He provides you athleticism, freakish athleticism, even that for whatever reason, maybe the Seahawks aren't happy with him in some capacity. I don't understand it because it felt like it was just 2 years ago that he was part of this resurgence of their secondary with him and Devon Witherspoon and all of that kind of stuff. But now it's like, oh, because Witherspoon's back, they're exploring options for Reek Woolen. It's like, I would love an athletic 6'4" press corner that can also keep up with players. That sounds like a great build of player in the hands of a guy like I don't know, the proven individual of DBs, Sean McDermott himself. Like it feels like something that's there that then you can get something else provided for you, especially when, as you bring it up, you have some guys like a Dorian Strong and things like that could be out there instead. But also, the one that you probably did want to be out there, it's not like it's doom and gloom for Max Harrison, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be he's going to be returning to practice and ready to go as soon as he's available. So what else do you have there long term to supplement for Trey White? Because eventually that time that Max Harrison's missing is going to add up. And realistically, the further we get, the less likely he's going to be able and capable of playing meaningful snaps and minutes and understanding what he needs to do. So you need to kind of have a what's behind door number 3 situation starting to progress, because door number 1 right now is Trey White, and that's just not working out. It's plain and simple. It's just not working right now. And then door number 2 is at least you have your Dorian Strongs and other individuals that can just fill in on the fly. But door number 3 probably needs to figure itself out sooner rather than later, because right now it doesn't feel like there's anything there. But if Bean and McDermott understand what the hell is going on now, they need to understand that there has to be an alternative solution to what's taking place.
If the Bills were to make a move, I swear we're gonna do game balls and game checks for this Saints game, but I feel like everybody's in more of a big picture mood right now. You know what? Let's do that first. Let's get game balls and game checks out of the way, and we'll kind of say bye to the Saints. Saints can go marching out, Luka.
Hey,
Heyo, okay. I'm gonna let you have this one. We talked about it off the air. It's your guy. It's a point you like to make, not just for on the air, maybe some folks off the air. Who gets your game ball for the Bills' performance this week against the New Orleans Saints?
number 24. May you please stand up, Cole Bishop. Seeing his name early and often was one that I brought up as a negative, not because of Cole Bishop, because if there was a game where I would love to not hear our safeties needing to clean up a lot, it's a 1 p.m. home game against the Saints. I would like to think that our front seven would at least be capable of doing their job and understanding their gaps and assignments and run fits and all that. As we talked about, it clearly was not going that way. And at least Cole Bishop, number 24, was doing his job, and then absolutely put the exclamation point on it with a beautiful, beautiful read. I mean, when he makes the pick on that Philly special play, Josh, it was already incredible. And then when they decided to show where he starts off the snap and the amount of space he had to come around and keep with his man and understand what's going on, and then to make the play itself, Cole Bishop is the absolute poster child right now, or the newest poster child of why, as we talked about, there might be some growing pains, but the athleticism should be able to get you by. And then eventually the mental part of everything will click. And once that switch is flipped, boy, do you feel a lot better about a position that a month and a half ago, I was even hearing individuals that I like to have football conversations with, respect some of their opinions and things like that. And those individuals were telling me that they were more comfortable with Damar Hamlin going back there at safety. And it was a gut reaction and understanding of, and I know they're not there anymore. Like, let me just be frank. I'm not saying that they're still, until that moment, we're like, oh, Damar Hamlin would still be better back there. That, though, was the absolute best thing to happen, where immediately, in a polite way, I said, are you still worried? Like, this is why you do this thing here. You saw what door one provided you, and yet you had this other door, going back to the doors, Josh, that is more athletically gifted and might just be a little bit rough, but you need to at some point see what you got with that, because it has the ability and the ceiling to be a lot better. You are reaping the benefits of this. And now I don't think there will be any more questions about at least one of our safety positions moving forward, because you now have seen what the high end Cole Bishop can provide it. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So for this as well, beautiful game. It's crazy that a game ball in a game where we question a lot of things about the defense is going to a defensive player. But if it wasn't for Cole Bishop, Josh, the result could have even been a lot different in this matchup. So Cole Bishop, you get my game ball.
An absolute freakishly athletic play by Bishop. A great interception, one that the Bills desperately needed at the time it happened. All around great play and great pick by you for player of the game. I'm going to go ho-hum James Cook. Again, you talked about the Atlanta Falcons, Luka. You'll be watching that game. You'll see number 7. He'll be like, man, that guy's good. Why do they ever take him off the field? And then you'll be all like, wait, who is that other guy? Tyson Algier? Okay. They bring him in. You know what the Bills don't have, Luka? They don't have an Algier.
Yeah.
They don't have a RJ Harvey. They don't have a second back you bring in. That Brian. Oh my God, my brain is mush today. Robin, thank you. Good Lord, brain mush today. Long weekend, folks. They right now are a one-man show in the backfield. James Cook put out some stats earlier this week where he has got 75% of the carries this season, which is up from like 53 last season. And that did not change today at all. James Cook carried the ball 22 times. Elijah Moore carried it once. Ty Johnson and Ray Davis each carried it once. There is nothing going on behind James Cook. I love it from the standpoint of the Bills, in my opinion, now recognize how good of a player James Cook is. We said it time and time again. James Cook was the best player on the field for the Bills in the AFC Championship game, including future Hall of Famer number 17 right here. James Cook played a better game for the Bills in the AFC Championship game than Josh Allen did. James Cook is the second best playmaker on offense. I think Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown are what stopped me short of saying second best player on offense. Rank those 3 behind Josh Allen any way you want. He is a special player, and I love the fact that the Bills are getting him more touches. you can feel the butt coming. This was a September 28th game against a New Orleans Saints team that you were 16-point favorites over. I hate the fact that you had to hand the ball to James Cook 22 times. This to me is the perfect spot where you would like to see Ray Davis get 10 carries or Ty Johnson chip in for 5. Josh Allen not chip in for any. He had 7, by the way. 7 too many for my liking, but the Bills needed a couple of them.
Mhm.
Does this say more about James Cook or Ray Davis to you, Luka?
We're still in game ball game checks. Just reminding you. This says
Yes.
more about Ray Davis to me, though. This says more about the alternative options. As much as it talks about James Cook, just mind you, I even made a comment. When was the last time we had a running back in which they matched carries to pass attempts on this offense? And it feels like you might even have to go all the way back to a Josh Allen rookie era. But even then, I'd be very curious to know and understand if that was the case. But yeah, I think this is more of an indictment on Ray Davis than it is James Cook. But again, James Cook is also just being unleashed at this point. So that's a great question to bring up. It's kind of a multi-level answer.
All right. So James Cook and Cole Bishop get the game balls. Luka, who gets your game check? We may have just mentioned his name for mine for the Bills' performance against the Saints today.
Game check. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think there's a couple good candidates. Realistically, I think there's a couple players overall that I realistically feel comfortable with saying here. But again, ironically enough, I'm going offensively, and I am going to go with Ty Johnson. It feels like it's going to be a Ty Johnson Ray Davis combo here. And if you want to just take Ray Davis, I'll take Ty Johnson. The fact you brought up the stat: Elijah Moore 1 carry 0 yards, Ty Johnson 1 carry 0 yards, Ray Davis 1 carry 3 yards. 3 individuals combined for 3 yards. One of them was the only one to go positive, and even then, it's like you are providing this offense absolutely nothing right now. Absolutely nothing. It's the epitome of what this game check segment's all about. And Ty Johnson, the thing that I get frustrated with Ty Johnson, and I don't want to go too long with this, but the thing I get frustrated with Ty Johnson is it felt like because of plays he's been able to make for this offense previously, we wanted to reward him, bring him back. He's a reliable hands and things like that. But he was also the reason that they weren't willing to take another swing on potentially a day 2, day 3. I mean, you wouldn't do a day 2, but day 3 running back that could have potentially been there and given you maybe something else of a dynamic, whatever. And instead you're okay with Ty Johnson. And it's like, at the end of the day, there's a reason Ty Johnson was kind of signed off the street and is our third option in the backfield. And today feels like yet another one that's it's going to string itself together that it's like, this is why you're a third string running back. And I think Bills fans and other individuals just seem to get caught up in those couple little highlight plays that it's like, ultimately you got to remember who he is as a player. And now when as you're pointed out perfectly, it's like James Cook is needed for these 22 carries and Josh Allen in a game against the Saints was needed for 7 carries. It's like, I would really love the second and third options in the backfield to be able to just shoulder a little bit more of this workload and not just have Ty Johnson out there 1 carry 0 yards. It's like, yeah, no, you're done for the day. You're just not providing us anything. So yeah, game check for me, Ty Johnson.
Yeah, and I probably looked like I was going to lean Ray Davis, and I was, and then I remembered who I wanted to go with. So you just did a good job explaining why both Ty Johnson and Ray Davis could be in the conversation. I'm going to go with Sean McDermott. I thought you laid it out well earlier. I think the team was unprepared. This is more of a coaching staff in general, particularly the defensive side of the ball. Thought about Bobby Babbage here, but when you're burning timeouts and getting pre-snap penalties on defense at home, eh, something's not right. The focus isn't there. A rare misstep for McDermott today, who usually I think has his team on the rails, keeps them that whole like win the day mindset, don't look ahead. This to me felt like a Bills team that just wasn't focused, wasn't all in, wasn't attacking the mission of the day, so to speak. And it could have been worse. You could have been like the Chargers who lost a game. But they won by 12 points. Ultimately, were proven to be the much better team. But still, I thought McDermott's had better days. And I agree with you. He looked as unhinged as I can remember him looking on the sideline for a September game against the Saints. All right. Luka, Brandon Beane in his tenure as Buffalo Bills GM, has swung midseason picks multiple times, or trades multiple times. His very first year here, he sent a third round pick for Kelvin Benjamin. Ultimately helped contribute to the Bills getting into the playoffs. He spent a third round pick on Rasul Douglas. He sent a third round pick for Amari Cooper. So we know, despite the fact that right now, it looks like the Bills have very limited cap space, moves can be made. The Bills have a move up their sleeve. Now, this is not necessarily an apples to apples conversation, because if we're talking like, would you rather have Trey Hendrickson or Reek Woolen? Like Trey Hendrickson, because he's a superstar. So, assuming that the level of player the Bills get is like, let's just say, like the other guys, where, Rasul Douglas, probably the best of the bunch, but not necessarily a massive needle mover, but somebody that comes in and is an upgrade at a starting spot. Do you have a position, offense or defense? I think most people are thinking defense at this point, but do you have a position that you think Brandon Beane would be swinging for? Or you can answer this as, you have a position you hope he would swing for?
The hope, and I do believe, because there's already, as you pointed out, evidence that he has done this, and I believe that there's now going to be enough stacked tape out there that it's a problem. We talked about it already. Corner, I do think, is one that, if Brandon Beane's not making calls, just to or just even asking around what's available, who have you heard that potentially is being dangled out there for potential trade and stuff. You already see the report of Reek Woolen. It's not like we're just only solely focused on Reek Woolen. He's just an example for this. If you're not doing your due diligence on that, I just think that's criminal for what you are as a GM, and understanding what you've seen out of this team early on. And on top of it all, you're not even doing it because of a reactionary reason. I think this is also something that the comments from McDermott we heard earlier this week, or last week, are more insightful than maybe he even wanted them to be. And I think that it's not heavy concern about the Max Harrison situation. It's just one where McDermott's already proven that he's very conservative with how he likes to approach players who are hurt and have been hurt for an extended period of time, and trying to reel in the expectations for them, especially for the media who's asking questions about them, and the fans who want to hear the answers on them. He's shown that he's conservative with that, and he just doesn't want to show anything, while also just taking the pressure off of that player, or just the situation and the team in general, for the expectations that could be there for him coming back. I mean, he's a first round pick, of course. There were expectations before training camp of him hopefully battling for the starting job opposite of Christian Benford, all of that. And now, it's been multiple months that he's just been recovering what he's been dealing with. And realistically, he needs to ramp up both with understanding the defense and everything in the meeting room, while also athletically and getting everything going for his body. So when you have that situation, and it's kind of a little bit of a question mark as to when that can become reality and when he can be dressing on game days, so on and so forth. And you also are seeing the Trey White situation. I mean, this question mark, the real thing is, what do you do after Dorian Strong, for instance? Okay, you go to Jamarcus Ingram. What are you doing after Jamarcus Ingram? If you're in this reality, like that,
Dane Jackson?
You're what we're talking about right now. I mean, you're one injury away from Jamarcus Ingram playing boundary corner.
Inactive today, by the way.
Inactive, correct. Inactive today. So, and that's your one injury away from that happening, because what you have right now with Trey White, as we talked at length, is just not good enough, and it won't be good enough. You already now see its ceiling, and its ceiling is unacceptable. So you need to do something else. So I would love to think that Brandon Beane, who is good at his job and has shown that he is willing to understand and recognize where a need is to be had. Last year with Amari Cooper, it's like, holy shit, we need at least another guy in this mix that can hopefully provide separation for us. And Amari Cooper is available. Let's bring him in. Maybe it'll at least shuffle everyone around where they need to be. And it did. It felt like it actually worked in its own right. It brought Keon a little bit up before his injury. Mac Hollins all of a sudden had a little bit of a surgence in his career randomly in that big receiver spot for the Bills. And then the year before, or 2 years before, you had the Rasul Douglas trade that, of course, was big. No, that was 2 years ago. Rasul Douglas trade that was easily also recognizes like we need another corner. Like we need another reliable boundary corner to play for this team right now because what we are getting is just not good enough. And then there was the injury, of course, as well on top of it, that it was just not going to the projection of everything. It wasn't progressing well. So we just need to do something to bolster that unit. The corner position, once again, is showing itself like, hey, we need something else. And if you're already having guys out there who are being dangled around like, hey, we might have this option for you, Brandon B needs to be doing his business and understanding what that is. Because like even a Reek Woolen, like, is he going to cost you a 3rd round pick? Probably not. I don't think so.
Wouldn't think so, no.
Yeah, it feels like, say a 5. Like you got to send a 5 in order to get Reek Woolen over here. What are you going to do with that 5? You're going to draft another Deion Walker. Okay, good luck with that one. Are you going to find the next Puka Nacua? Probably not. Like you have to understand that the percentages tell you that 5th round pick is probably not going to be anything special. So if you have something that's a need like it is and showing itself right now, and you could get a guy who's got proven game time and understanding of how to play in this league and a Reek Woolen in here, and then hopefully he can turn into a little bit of an improvement, that's absolutely in this window of time for the Bills worth every asset possible with that 5 going the other way so that you at least have a better alternative at a position of need right now. And corner is rapidly approaching that. Holy shit, we really need another thing there.
I laughed at a couple of the responses we got earlier, which, everybody has a right to their opinion. We don't have to be right. But one person said, okay, the Bills don't have any cap space. So you trade for Reek Woolen. He comes here, he's great, and he walks in March. Like, what then? Then you celebrate the fact that a team that had a Super Bowl window, a real look at the 1 seed, added a player that played so well the last 3 months of the season down the stretch at a position of need that he's too expensive for you to re-sign.
Yeah.
And that probably means that you had a real good look at winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And you pat
Oh, no.
Brandon Beane on the back.
Oh no, our success is too good.
Yeah. Oh my God. And and when you're talking about that, and people always laugh about like, oh, trade AJ Epinesa, but this is the kind of trade where I think you could actually think of some things where it's like, okay, Seattle, what do you need? You need a rotational defensive end, maybe not Epinesa, he's kind of expensive, but the Bills have some good depth, we think. I mean, you could probably throw something at them that would be interesting to them. But to Luca's, that was one of the biggest tackles I've ever seen. To Luca's point, um, after Dorian Strong, who is a 6th round pick, there's not a lot there. It's guys the Bills have either given up on and then brought back because nobody else in the league wanted, or guys the Bills are currently in the process of giving up on. So that's where we're at. But not all doom and gloom. The Bills are 4-0. That's where you want to be. Next up for the Bills, Luca, is a date with the New England Patriots, who I think could present a lot of the same problems we saw today from the Saints team. They have a mobile quarterback in Drake May, who's a better thrower of the football than Spencer Rattler. They have a good running game. We know Mike Vrabel would love to shorten the game, come in and play smash mouth football. And with Christian Gonzalez, they have a defense that can be tough on you. So I do think this is going to be a tough matchup for the Bills. It is going to be a tough out for the Bills. And I'm interested to kind of get into this and break it down because all due respect to the Saints, this was a kind of an easy week from a preparation standpoint. We lived a lot in the historical ramifications of it. Like, hey, there's been a lot of blowouts in Bills Saints history, or let's talk about the Terrence McGee return. But the Bills have a real game on their hands. And Luca, this one feels like, we're going to have our live show this week, but this one feels like if the Bills win it, it's already maybe there. If the Bills win it, they'll then have 3 wins over all their AFC East rivals. That's the first dirt shovel, I think, on the rest of the AFC East.
You win this game, you officially can't lose a tiebreaker in the division. Like that's the bottom line. You just can't lose a tiebreaker in the division anymore. That's as simple as that. And yeah, based on where the Jets and the Dolphins, who are, as we're recording this, playing tomorrow night, as you might be listening to it, playing tonight, or have already played. If you're a later listener, we appreciate you. But also, the Jets and the Dolphins are who they are. And then the Patriots really are that only one that potentially has a little bit of bark and might have a little bit of say in what's going on. You take care of business Sunday night at home. And yeah, you're continuing to do what those Patriots of years past did to everyone else in the AFC East. The Bills and us as fans are sitting there starting to already have discussions on potentially how things could break down come January and what playoff seeding is going to be like, as then the Patriots and Patriot fans are going to games, hoping to pull this one out because it could potentially project them a little bit more forward in the wild card race and see where they could go and get the matchups that if they make the playoffs, that's who they could be playing. I say this a little bit tongue in cheek because I personally had that weird realization kind of moment at a Monday night Patriots game in New England where I'm enjoying myself. It's the Rex Ryan era Bills. And it's like, we're a decent team. If we win this game, it would be fun and maybe it'd matter, it's of course in the context of playoffs. And, I'm just having a grand old time with some friends. And all of a sudden I look over and there's a circle of middle-aged gentlemen having their own good time, smoking a couple cigars around a fire. And at that point, I believe it was an October Monday night game. It's the one where we missed Shady on a wheel route to hopefully maybe win that one. But overall, they were having a conversation already about what their plans and what their vacation schedules look like, Josh, in January. It was an October Monday night game. New England fans were living a good life at that time. So if the Bills can at least take care of business on Sunday night, yes, I share the brain with you. It is that first shovel of dirt on the grave for everyone else in the AFC East and kind of securing things. It's far from over because there's a lot of football. There's a lot of things that can happen, of course. But yes, it will have that feel to it that you lead into a Monday night game the following week against the Falcons, which then leads into a bye week. And really you start looking down the schedule, Josh, and it's like, where are the speed bumps? Because it just feels like there's getting less and less, and you're no longer even concerned about your division at that rate. And you really can start navigating the schedule as you continue to go and ultimately, hopefully, maybe even get that 1 seed. So we will see what happens in a week time.
There's a team from Kansas City that comes here in 4 games. There's a bye week between then.
Yeah.
If the Bills are 8-0 after the Chiefs come to town, conversation's gonna be a little different around here, one that we haven't really ever had in our football viewing lifetime, and I'm nervously looking forward to that if that happens. We won't even talk about it right now, but it's kinda like, in baseball, you don't talk about a no-hitter in the 3rd inning, even though you can kinda see, like, this lineup capable of striking out the next 27 batters. All right. Well, Luka, the Packers are doing whatever they want to the Cowboys. It's hilarious. I just looked up and they threw a pass to Jordan Love, who stood there for 5 seconds, scanned the field, and then just ran for 10 yards. This Cowboys defense is an absolute joke. Do not trade for any of their players, please, Brandon Bean. For Luka, I am Josh McCarty. We will talk to you next week on Bills Chat.